Are you tired of driving an old Ford, but it doesn't have modern features like wireless CarPlay or wireless Android Auto? This might be the easiest way to modernize it. It's also going to look factory, which I think is the best part. And on top of that, no splicing, no soldering, so you don't even need a wiring harness like this. Everything you need is right here in the box. Now, what's nice about these older Fords is Ford actually used a very similar double din across the lineup in the early 2000s. Everything from Ford, Mercury to Lincoln. I'll be installing it in my 2005 Ford Mustang, so the dash process to remove the stereo and change it out will be a little bit different for each vehicle, so we're going to quickly go through that, but then you can see how it all comes together. After this is all said and done, you will have a older Ford with modern features and without the burden of a new car payment. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our new radio. We have some warranty paperwork. We've got our user manual. So this tells you what everything is, which is a definite nice to have. Looks really nice. I think it's going to look really clean in the Mustang. So right now I currently have an Android screen, but this is already a few years old. So it did not natively come with any kind of CarPlay or Android Auto. This bezel is designed to fit this space without that bracket. So it's just going to look a whole lot cleaner, and nobody's even going to realize it's an aftermarket Android radio and you're going to be running CarPlay. It's going to look clean. Next to that, we have all of our connection points. Looks like we've got an antenna in there. Microphone, because with any third-party stereo, you're gonna need an external mic, so they do include that in the box as well. More wiring, so this is actually gonna be what connects to the factory wiring in the back of the stereo of your Ford. Looks like possibly an antenna adapter or extender. And then we have some RCA connections here. Front right, front left, video out. And that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and get this installed. Now it's time to start taking apart the dash. Don't let this intimidate you. And if you don't happen to have a Mustang, I'm sure there's a YouTube video that will show you how to take apart your exact dash to get to the stereo. A lot of these early Ford vehicles are honestly pretty easy to take apart. Couple panels pop off, couple screws, and you're done. So don't let that stop you. You can definitely handle this project on your own. So in the Mustang's case, the first thing I need to do is I need to take off this trim panel around my shifter. If you have an automatic, you need to do the same thing. So we're gonna go here. I'm using a plastic pry tool. That was so easy. There we go. That's loose. Now we need to remove these two screws right here. Those come out super easy. I'm going to start in the back here, just like that. There we go. Now, these two right here are going to pop off. So I'm going to pull this. Same thing over here. Pull at the bottom, and it comes off. There we go. So we have two connections on the back here. So that one's done. Had to push it in right here. Now I don't have the factory one there. So this one should also. There we go, that one's disconnected. Now we just have to worry about these AC controls on the bottom. So I was able to bring this out a little bit. If you kind of push in the middle there, right there, you kind of lift that up, and now that's what you're disconnecting right there. So for here, I'm gonna pry this one out. Now we should be able to get this out. So, well, we have that. So I'm gonna set this aside down here because I have all these. These are just USB extensions. And now we get to 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can slide it out. Now we're ready to do the install. Now I did make a few changes to my Mustang, like I added steering wheel controls that did not actually come with my model year, as well as a backup camera. So my installation is going to be slightly different and slightly more complicated than a typical plug and play install, but we will do the basic install first, and then I will show you the modifications that I made in order to make it work with all the features that I added to my specific car. So I've got my new radio right here. I already have the new wiring harnesses for this radio in the vehicle, and that's just because I had to make those modifications. So we'll ignore those for now, and we'll just treat this like we're bringing the wires into the car for the first time. So we're just gonna take this connector here, and we're gonna line it up with this factory one right here, and we're just going to push it in, and it's gonna click. And then we also have this one right here, and if you look in the back there, you will have a connector that fits it perfectly. So I'm just going to plug that in. And then we have one more big gray connector right here. So that's this guy. And then we're going to plug him in right here to this factory connector in the back of the stereo. This is pretty self-explanatory as well. We have this black connector, and it's going to go right here to this plug right here. At this point, you're going to want to grab this, and we're going to go ahead and plug this in next. And this goes between the stereo and the car harness. So we're going to find the part of the harness that connects right into here, just like that. And this harness goes basically to the back of the head unit right here from this black plug. Now it needs another connection right here on this side, and that's going to come from this harness down here. This little white connector is going to go right in there. So now that's connected. He's going to go to the back of the head unit right there. Then you're going to want to grab this harness right here that has all these RCA ports on it. And we're going to take this to the back of the head unit right here in this corner. Right. And it'll click in right there. And pretty much for this one, all you're going to do is connect the RCAs from this to this one right here. Aux R right there. Go ahead and connect those. And then we're going to go ahead and connect the white one as well. And then after that, we are going to add the number 2 right here, which is camera in. So in my case, since I have an aftermarket backup camera, we're going to go ahead and plug this in right here near the top. And this would be the top of the head unit right there. My backup camera might look a little bit different from yours because, once again, this is aftermarket and not factory. But I'm going to go ahead and plug it in right there at the top. And now that's connected. After all that's done, we do have some accessories we need to install. One of those is going to be the microphone. Now, where you decide to install this will really depend on your vehicle and your preference. Some people like to run it to the A-pillar in the top of their vehicle. Some people like to run it up here, right above, maybe near the dome lights. For me, to keep this install simple, I'm simply going to put it somewhere near the steering wheel. So I will figure that out. So I'm just going to leave some slack, and I'll just probably set it up here in the corner for now and make sure I plug this in. So let's go ahead and do that now. It's going to be this white one right here, and you're going to see one that says mic. So that's this guy right here. And you're just going to have all the slack so you can hide it somewhere. I'm going to leave it loose, and then I will simply set my microphone over here out of the way, but it will be connected. Next, we're going to install the GPS antenna. You can install it really anywhere where there's not going to be direct metal right above it, because that will interfere with the signal. So just make sure there's mostly plastic above it. But I actually already have one installed, so I'm going to use that pre-existing GPS antenna and the wire, since I already had an Android radio in this vehicle. Your GPS antenna is going to get installed right here. Next thing we need to install is the antenna adapter or extender. So this will go in the back of the head unit right here where it says antenna, and that'll plug in right there. And this will go to your factory antenna in the back here. Like in the Mustang, it's orange. However, for some reason, this actually doesn't fit this model year Mustang. I'm not sure why, but luckily I do have this antenna adapter from my previous radio. And as you can see, the ends of it that actually go to the factory part are very different. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pre-existing antenna adapter that I already had. So we're going to grab the factory antenna in the back, plug that in, and then we will take the other end of it and we'll plug it into the back of the Android radio. And it very clearly says antenna right there. So we'll push that in. All we're left with are some USB ports. Now you can run these to your glove box, or in my case, what I'm gonna actually do is I've added USB cables to the front of my bezel here, so I'm gonna plug them in here when I'm all done. But we'll go ahead and add them to the back of the radio right now. Here's the first USB. Then we'll do the next one. So now everything's plugged in, so we're gonna go ahead and turn on the Mustang and give it a try. At this point, once you've tested all your features and everything's working as expected, you can go ahead and reassemble your dash. I'm gonna very quickly go over all the modifications I made to the back of the harness for my specific use case, where I added steering wheel controls and my backup camera. So you can go ahead, if you don't need that information, skip ahead and you can see this fully installed, and I will show you the features of this head unit. Now in my specific situation with my Mustang, I had to add steering wheel controls, get my amp turn on to make sure my amplifier in my trunk turned on, as well as my aftermarket backup camera. So I'm gonna go ahead and walk you through what I had to do in order for those to work with what would normally be a plug and play install. So coming from my steering wheel controls right here, I have 2 wires, a key 1 and a key 2. This is typically how you'll connect something like this to an aftermarket or Android radio. And all I did is I actually tapped them in to this black plug right here, and you will see on this diagram which wires I connected to. It might be different on each harness what the colors are, so I would mostly go off the location of this black ground and this yellow wire right here. So once I found out which wires to tap into based off that diagram, I went kind of in the middle between this plug and the factory plug over here. So once I connected those 2 wires, I needed to come to the screen and go to the steering wheel controls and program them. So you'll do that right here. So you'll just press which function you want to program, and then you will hold the button on your steering wheel in order to program it. And that's all I had to do, and now my steering wheel controls work with this head unit. Next, in order to get my sub to power on, I actually needed to make sure that the radio told my amp to turn on when the car was on. So you can grab this amp control wire that comes right off this white plug right here, and it will not have any connection at the end. It's up to you on how you want to connect this to your amp control wire. In my case, I added a female quick connect, and then on my actual wire coming from the amplifier, I put the male connector. So I'm just going to use a quick connect to go ahead and connect these together. By default, the amp wire is not powered, so you must go to Settings, Device, Sound, and where it says Amp On Off, make sure it says On. And then we have the 2 RCAs for the sub that I need to plug in. These are going to get plugged into the aux L and the aux R out, which are right here. So red to red, white to black. And now I should have the right signal wires for the sub. Now for my backup camera, in addition to the plug that we already plugged in, I also need constant power because I have my backup camera on all the time. Now going back to the wiring that came with the head unit, there's this black plug again, and on it, using the same diagram that we used for the steering wheel controls, I found 12-volt accessory power, which will be on when the ignition is on or the engine is on. So I will tap into that for the power for my camera. And then in my case, there's also this brown wire. That's the reverse signal. So I will plug in my reverse trigger wire, which will tell the head unit to switch over to the backup camera image. Once again, I made my own connections on my own wiring. So I'm going to go ahead and use this male spade connector. And this is going to be the backup camera 12-volt power. I labeled it myself. And I will plug that in to the red wire right there. And then I have my reverse trigger wire that tells the head unit to switch over to the backup camera image. And I have a male spade connector on that as well. So I'll make sure that's plugged in. And then I will have steering wheel controls, the sub and the amp turn on, as well as my backup camera image. Once you have your stereo installed, this is going to be the screen that you're greeted by. Right here you have the App Store, which is specific to this head unit. It is not the Google Play App Store, which is over here. You just need to sign in. This one specifically will mostly be where you update the apps that come on the head unit, as well as where you can actually download other themes to try out. So if you want to go ahead and switch out this theme right here, you can do that by going to the App Store, Themes, Install, and applying one of these themes right here. They have Google Chrome pre-installed, Gallery for photos, Bluetooth audio, your DSP where you can make adjustments to the way it sounds, as well as they have different presets for you to adjust and change, and also user. So these are all customizable. You go back right here in the corner. We have Google Search, pre-installed calculator, file manager, instructions. CarLink is where you will do your CarPlay or Android Auto. Front video if you hooked up a front camera. Maps will be your navigation. Music player, radio, more navigation, more settings is where you can connect to Wi-Fi, change device settings, such as if you want to turn off the beeping. So if you see here, we have the beeping back. I can turn that off. General. And then we have factory, which actually has more settings behind it. And the password for that is going to be 3368 confirm. And now you can change some more settings like your boot screen logo and a few other things in here. User settings, so mostly like your Google settings, system, date, time, and other information as well. If you're curious more about this device, I will go ahead and show that to you here. And they also have YouTube pre-installed as well. Now looking at the connection points here on the radio, we have a Type-C, USB-A, menu will take you back here to the main screen. Navi will be your default navigation. Band will bring up the radio. So this is the default radio here. You can save presets. You can adjust just by scrolling. So that's pretty cool. Not sure how many people use that, but if you're not using radio, you might be using Bluetooth. So that can be accessed right here. And here you can see Android Auto. Now I don't actually have an iPhone, so I can't show CarPlay, but it functions pretty much the same way. You connect your phone to CarLink right here in the corner, and then you will be able to access your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It appears to work pretty well, so I've been pretty happy with it. Overall, it's a pretty responsive head unit. And I do like the physical buttons right here. Just the fact that you have a quick volume control. If you don't have steering wheel controls, that's nice. The fact that you have different themes and that you can actually access the Google Play Store. And thanks to the fact that they give you additional USB ports, you can run them to your glove box, or in my case, I actually have them put right here as well. So I have USB ports here and here that all connect to this head unit, giving me tons of functionality and features. Overall, I think this is a pretty cool head unit. You've got your physical knobs, you've got USB functionality, and I like how it matches the aesthetic of these early 2000s Fords. If you're interested in picking up this unit, I will leave a link right here on screen as well as in the video description. Thanks for watching.